Hi, my name is Peyton Bernhardt, and I have decided to do an informative speech on the topic of male-female communication. My purpose for this speech is in hopes that my audience will gain a better understanding for not only the differences between men and women pertaining to communication, but will gain a better understanding for their similarities as well, and will ultimately be able to improve their communication skills. From the dawn of time, we as a species have been bamboozled out of proper communication between males and females. We all remember the infamous miscommunication between Adam, Eve, and Satan, the Prince of Darkness himself, and I am sure the extinction of dinosaurs can be traced back to a Jurassic couple in the midst of a silent treatment. We can clearly see the miscommunication throughout history, but the question I first want to pose and then answer is why? Though it seems all signs point to you're from Venus, I'm from Mars, let's just agree to disagree, there is more common ground on the topic of communication than we are led to believe. As a woman, I have managed to maintain a number of healthy relationships with the members of opposite sex, and while they have presented their own communication mishandlings, they are no more prevalent in those relationships as they are in relationships that I have with other females. In order to get to the bottom of our blunders in communication, I will be centering this conversation around three main points. The first being the myths perpetuated about communication between the two genders. The second will be comprised of the differences between the male-female brain and its inner workings. The third, I will focus on all the similarities between males, females, their brains, and communication in general. So let's go ahead and dive in. As a child, if you grew up in America, I'm sure you are able to recall a time when women were portrayed as real chatty Cathys. I mean, it's right there in their name. You can't miss the overt message that women are rumored to talk a lot. You've seen it portrayed in movies, television, plays, books, and really any other medium imaginable. Unfortunately, this is another myth from our childhood that has been debunked. A new study has just been done at the University of Arizona, revealing that men and women don't have such a large gap in words spoken per day as previously proclaimed. In fact, the average words spoken by a woman per day is 16,215. Men follow with a close 15,699. This completely blows a previous claim that women use 20,000 words per day compared to a mere 7,000 words per day spoken by men out of the water. These studies are a clear indicator that many of our thoughts and ideas on intergender communication are widely influenced by myths with no substantial backing. If we've spent the majority of our lives basing ideas of communication on myth, what exactly are the facts? I'm glad you asked. This brings us to my next point, the differences between the male-female brain. One of the most intriguing studies of the human body is neuroscience, and it is rapidly progressing. And of course, there have been studies done on male and females and the differences of their brain compositions and makeups. One of the huge ones that I read about, according to researchers published by Michael Price, there's a lot of differences with the women's brains with a tendency to have thicker cortices than men. This part of the brain is associated with higher scores on cognitive and general intelligence tests. But never fear, men, you're not out of the running just yet. It was shown that men have higher brain volumes in every subcortical region. These areas of the brain control things like memory, spatial awareness, emotions, decision-making, learning, and reward processing. Now, before you get carried away with this information, this same study also stated that these differences had no impact whatsoever on IQ testing, which means though these differences are vast, they are not the reason for our strange communication attempts. But wait, there's still more. A huge part of our personalities and communication styles stem from none other than our preferred learning styles. A study done shows vast differences between men and women and how they learn best. This study shows that the majority of men learn through multimodal processes, leaving a slim percentage that prefer to learn strictly through auditory or kinesthetic or reading-writing methods. Conversely, the same study showed that while 40% of women were multimodal learners, there's a large chunk dedicated to kinesthetic learning, followed then by reading, writing, and visual learners. I don't know about you, but this came as a huge shock to me because I would have thought that men would be tethered to kinesthetic learning. Never did I think that there would be such a vast overlap on the amount of women who preferred multimodal learning and the amount of men who preferred the same. So what exactly does this reveal? I believe it reveals that men and women not only speak an incredible close amount of words, but they also have similar learning styles. Which brings us right into my last point, the similarities between the genders and their communication styles. Before I really dive into all the similarities, there is one thing that I would really like to address. It's a huge on-the-nose, elephant-in-the-room statement. We're all human. There are overwhelming amount of innate qualities we all possess. This alone should make communication between the two genders a lot easier. Not convinced? Take it from a scientist, Julia Gottwald. She says our brains are more like a patchwork quilt, with most people having a mixture of features that are typically male or female or are common in both sexes. Sound familiar? It should. This proves that the study done on learning styles is in fact accurate. This means that while we can pull scientific differences and bold studies out to say how different men and women are, they cannot beat biology. And the biological facts are we share more common traits between the two genders than we do contrasting ones within the realm of communication, of course. It may come down to more learning a universal communication skills that deal with how to communicate with different personality types rather than learning how to communicate with a gender-specific set of skills. Perfect communication skills between males and females will never be perfect, but that's because it's not an exact science. We still have a lot of research to do and a long way to go to improve communication between both genders, but I think that that's going to start with us understanding the vast differences and overwhelming similarities between the two. Things tend to balance out, and the focus should not be on science and the search for biological reasons as to why men and women communicate so differently, but rather on the art of communication itself. It may not be all Venus and Mars after all, but a middle ground that needs exploring. Thank you for watching.